Welcome back. Sammy here at Sammy J Stitches, and this week we're doing a homework video, and I have invited Emily Snark and Spark on FlossTube. She has started kind of doing her own homework videos because the thing about this is it's all interpretation. And sometimes if we can explain our interpretation of the homework, it helps people. So it doesn't hurt to have multiple videos out there, and you get to different audiences, different people like different things. So I thought it was really great, and I invited her to come do the same thing here with my way of doing it. So we're going to start with magical stitches, I think, because I've heard it's overly complicated this week. It's not overly complicated. Yeah, it's not overly complicated, but I feel like sometimes when we write things out, it gets worded in a way that just boggles people's minds. And when we can talk about it, we can explain that it's not that complicated. It's super easy. So our big thing this week is our task is to stitch 1,000 stitches on a whip with a mythical creature in it. In the past, we have had so many questions. What's a mythical creature? What can I use? Da, da, da. So what we're telling you is research. Go to Google, pull out something from your whip, i.e. in this example, it's a mermaid. And Google will tell you a mermaid is a mythical sea-dwelling creature, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can use it. And so all we're asking is that you do the research, and that if it says mythical creature, we're going to take it. So, and it's just 1,000 stitches. If you decide you want to split it among multiple projects that each have a mythical creature in them, you must do a minimum of 100 stitches. This does not mean you have to have 10 mythical creatures. It only means that if you want to split it up, it can be no more than 10 because each need 100 stitches. So, and then if you decide you don't want to look for a mythical creature, or maybe you're a monogamous stitcher and you don't have that, 1,500 stitches. So what are your plans there, Emily?
So I have Letters from Hogwarts, the Stitch Your Own Adventure from Cunning Cross Stitch that came out. That was really big last year, and I'm really behind on it. But I have that, and one of the chapter options for the Stitch Your Own Adventure is you can go take the Care of Magical Creatures class. And I know for a fact there's a Thestral, there's a Unicorn, or a Hippogriff. So I just need to decide which one of those, take a look at the definition of that mythical creature, post that cover photo, and I'm good. I'm going to do all of my 1,000 on that one, especially because that also is my focus piece for January, and I'd like to end January on a high note. So.
Right. Now, if we look up our unicorn's mythical, it says a unicorn is a legendary creature that is known to possess magical abilities. So it doesn't actually say it's a mythical creature.
Valid.
Yeah. Oh, no, but I found it here, the Britannica unicorn, mythological animal. So you may have to look past the very first response that you get, but it does say it's mythological and you can use it. And I do have a unicorn that says, ew, people, which I'm feeling so hard today. So,
is it magical or just mythical?
Mythical. It has to say mythical.
I've noticed a lot of, I was doing some preliminary, and I've noticed a lot of things say magical. Just basically scroll around till you find your word. You can always do when you Google, I know there is a way to search for certain keywords specifically. You could type in your search word, your animal, and then also make sure you type in like mythical, and it will filter results that have both.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the questions we have? Because we are trying to get away from question threads. I say we. This is a Vicky decision because she does get overwhelmed when there's all those questions. And really, our whole point in having them in the first place was to show you that your teammates can answer the questions just as much as Vicky or I can. Because like Emily, she sees that we answer the questions here and here. Well, she can answer it for you there because we do get the same question over and over again. So so I know there are some, but there ended up with a question thread anyway, because one person asks a question and everybody responds. So do we have anything on there that we need to address?
Let's see. I think definitely we've already covered, you can do multiple projects. You don't have to. If you choose to do multiple, it's a minimum of 100, but that doesn't mean it's only 100. If you only have 3, you could easily split that up and just make sure at the end of the week you have a total of 1,000 across those 3 projects.
Right.
I did see that full coverage one, and I know people get really confused about double dipping their full coverage. So whoever has the Spangler Dragon, yes, as long as you can find proof that dragon is a mythical creature, you can use it. You just can't count your homework stitches in the full coverage stitches. Don't double dip those. These are separate stitches.
Right. Yeah. Because we get that question a lot, and so that is a good one to address. Is the full coverage event being separate from everything else and being part of the yearly doesn't mean you can't use that full coverage other places. What it means is you cannot use the same stitches. So like week 1, I used my mini Phantom of the Masquerade, which is my focus piece, for some homework. And then after I was done with my homework, then any extra stitches I put into it after that went into the full coverage thing. And it could be, so I know I was stitching on it and I was like, I'm just going to stitch on the same project all night. I got 2 homeworks done with it. And then afterwards I had like 82 stitches. So I posted those in the full coverage because you can keep a running total. It's just when you hit 7,000 that it's going to make a difference. So if you have to jump back and forth like that, absolutely go ahead. You just can't use it for both, because that would make some people way too powerful, because they can stitch those full coverages like nobody's business.
I think another one I noticed that we had talked about before we started filming was I've seen several people in the questions thread saying, I have a horse, so could I say it's a unicorn or a Pegasus? No, it's a horse. In this case, yes, we applaud creativity, and that's great. But it doesn't have wings, it doesn't have a horn. Versus someone said, well, I have a lizard. A dragon is a reptile. Yeah. I mean, if I was really pushing the envelope, I would definitely be like, this is a dragon hatchling. You can't tell me it's not.
And most of the time we love that sort of thing. That's what we push for, is tell us a story. Tell us what makes this normal creature mythical. That's not what we asked this week, though. That's one of the reasons we put in the research, is because we want it to actually be mythical. And part of the reason for that is because since we're doing Percy Jackson and they do have the mythical characters, you're going to see them throughout the year. And we want you to be able to recognize what those are. Just like when we did the research about the different gods, it's because we're going to see them throughout the year. So we wanted you to know a bit more about them. There's method to the madness. So,
I think it's a great
again, at the end of the day, if you can't make it work, penalty stitches. I do think, let me confirm, she might have put it in there. I think all the penalty stitches have to be on the same project, or at least they did last week.
That one I'm not sure. I was taking a look at it again.
Yeah, it doesn't say, but I know that was the decision they made last week, is that if you're doing penalty, it needs to all be on one project. It needs to kind of feel like a penalty, that for not being able to pull it out. But I mean, and there too, always put in your points or your stitches. Even if you put in 100 or 200, you didn't finish the prompt, those stitches are going to count. Last year, we gave partial credit. You would get 2 points instead of 10 points. This year, we're not doing points. So every stitch counts. Every stitch is going to get you one step closer to your goal. So always go back, put in your homework exactly how many stitches you did. And even those people that go over, you never know, there's a chance that could get you a bonus too. So we want you to try a little bit harder to get your stitches in. That's all we're pushing for. And we want to award you for what you do get done. This is all about just enjoying your stitching and motivating you to want to stitch more. That's what it all started out as. But then sometimes people get very overwhelmed with trying to do all the things. They get very overwhelmed with, well, I'm letting my team down, or I didn't do my homework. It's okay. It's okay. That it's just about motivating you. It is not about, you're not letting anybody down. We don't play that game.
Life happens, and we all have to.
That was me this week. I stitched 300 stitches all week. I didn't count it towards anything. Well, I think I ended up cleaning up a snowball with it or something, but for the most part, I didn't do anything with it. And I had to tell myself, that's okay. Just do one little task. And sometimes it may not be magical stitches. You may have to find something else that's smaller. That's why it's great that there's so many challenge groups out there. So
they're all different. They're all unique. I wanted to say before we moved on. Sorry, I can hear my cat. I'm like, of all things right now, I'm hearing my cat. But someone had asked if they did penalty, but they also did the research, would they still get the bonus? And I'm gonna actually say no, because I reread the prompt, and at the very bottom of the prompt, Vicki wrote, if you do the research and stitch 1,000, then you earn the 500 bonus. It does not say that you could get the bonus if you do the penalty and the research.
Gotcha.
So if you do it the proper way. I don't know. Okay. I think that's all I have for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything going on in Sane pulled up?
I don't have anything pulled up. I'm also looking at my planner. I just know that everything that was month long, so we're wrapping up. The semi-sane snowball fight is still going, and that's still 300 to chuck a snowball, 100 to dry off. The whip days, I think the choose my whip is still happening, but yeah, everything's pretty much wrapping up, I would say.
Yeah, choose my whip. I think we've already, or maybe like they picked today or tomorrow. It's at its last week. Yeah. I don't think so it's kind of right there at the end. Yeah, we're at the end of the month, so things are starting to tie up. But we've got some cool stuff coming next month, and we will go over those definitely in detail next Sunday, because it'll be right before it starts. But I did want to touch on like a little bit of what's going on while Emily's here and can be like, this is what I'm doing. One of the ones I'm really looking forward to is Stitchopoly. I have played Stitchopoly every time they've done it. I've always enjoyed it because it's very at your own pace. Yeah, you do have kind of a time window, so because they don't want people to just not play for a week and then pick it up, but it's very at your own pace. So you land on a square, you complete it, you move on. The only time you have to wait is if you get a community chest card or a chance card. I think they're called something else for Stitchopoly, like
Sash and Lily Pad.
Yeah. But they have 4 different options this time. And I'm telling you, we were sitting on Virtual Stitchers. I think it was the second time we did Stitchopoly, and somebody asked, they said, do I have to stitch when I land on like Frosted Pumpkin? Do I have to stitch a Frosted Pumpkin? And that was never a thing, but I always thought that would be so cool to try and do that. And that is one of the options this time is if you want to play the insane version, if you land on Frosted Pumpkin, you stitch on 100 stitches on Frosted Pumpkin. If you don't, then you have to double those stitches. So then it's 200 stitches on whatever you're working on. So, and I'm doing no new starts, and I don't have probably like half of the things on the board, and I'm still tempted to do that insane and just have to do double the stitches on the ones that I don't have. A couple of them, she did say, are like LNSs. So if they sell a pattern that you have, then it counts. So that's a little more broad and might be a little easier for anybody trying to fit things.
That makes sense. And for me, I've never gotten to do Stitchopoly before, so I'm really excited to do it. And it was definitely, I feel like I have such obscure, like a lot of Etsy designers, but not a lot of the like big name ones. Or so like I don't have any Frosted Pumpkin, and I'm going.
Neither. Well, I do. I just
what do
don't
I
have
work
it
on?
active. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, so there's.
And doing the no new starts, you're like, I'm not supposed to start anything. So I did purposely start a Glendon place at the end of last year just for Stitchopoly.
Thinking ahead.
I did, but I should have done a little better because I probably could have started a Frosted Pumpkin and a Brooks Books. I don't have one of those going right now either. But there's also traditional, which is, just going around the board. There's one where you have to double your stitches on each. And then I think there's a non-counting version, right?
I thought there was. Because I think they wanted this year. They wanted to make it accessible to everyone, not just the counters, but even the people who counting isn't their thing. I want to say there is a non-counting version. I'm just not sure. I came in a little late at that part of the explanation, so I'm not sure how that one works.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But like I said, we'll go over it more next week. If you want to, because there's also a separate group for it. So you have to be in Semi-Sane. Oh, and by the way, if you would like to join Semi-Sane, you can use myself, Sammy J, or Emily as a reference, and you have to say lightsaber. That is the passcode for this month.
Starting
February. Well, what was it this month? Do you remember?
Wonderland.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
So if you're joining within the next week, it's Wonderland. If you're joining next month, it's lightsaber. So you have to join Semi-Sane, but there's also a side group so that we don't have people getting blocked and stuff for Stitchopoly. So if that's something you want to join, now is the time within the next week. I believe they let people join during the month, but it's massively confusing at that point. So this is the time. Okay, what else do we have next month?
Oh, and I pointed it out.
Oh,
so the Alphabet Bet.
Mm-hmm.
Because it changes every 2 weeks, I did wanted to point out that technically we are switching over to C on the 29th. That is Friday the 29th. So we will start C technically before February. But just don't forget that if that's something you're doing.
Yeah, because with there being 26 letters in the alphabet, 52 weeks in the year, every other week, every other Friday, that's when they do. Yeah, in order to get them all in within the year. And are you doing Alphabet?
I am not, just because I really don't have any samplers. I don't have any pieces, and I have pieces with like random letters, like my Hogwarts
not the whole alphabet.
Yeah, I'm like, I have a giant H on one of my pieces, but so I was like, do I just wait until we get to the letter H and then I just play catch up and do like at this point how many 100 stitches? Like, no. So unfortunately, no, I'm not doing Alphabet Bet, but I do know a lot of people have shared their samplers with me, so I kind of keep track of it. This is a nice little thing.
Yeah, I know several people who are doing Alphabet. I think Vicky she has like something. It's a Lizzie Kate, I think, that has letters all over it, because you have to stitch the actual letter, right?
Is hers a good marriage, or I thought it was you have to actually stitch. What is it's a Lizzie Kate, but maybe
it's not a good marriage because that one doesn't have an alphabet, or she has one that just has an alphabet on it. Like it's like spring alphabet or something to that effect.
Yeah. I'm like, I've seen it. Yeah. I know she's shown it.
And see, I like avoid stitching, like the ones that have alphabets on them. I'm like, why do I need alphabets all over my house? I don't. So I'm just going to avoid stitching that part, or I put something else in there.
Yeah. That Halloween Joan Elliott that came out last fall. Oh, I love that with the witches and the border. And I was like, I'll totally stitch that. But I'm like, I'm going to take the alphabet off.
Yeah. So, okay. I think that's it. I know Whip Days is going on. Oh, Pooper Potion. That one sounds really funny, but
I'm not doing it,
so I don't know. there's a few things coming next month. So if you're interested in trying some stuff that's a little different, now's a good time to get joined into my Sane and then jump into next month's stuff.
Doing a scavenger hunt. The scavenger hunt in February.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And then WIPCO numbers are being drawn on the 27th.
27th, yeah.
Hopefully, assuming she's on time with the baby. With having the newborn baby.
Yeah. I think she'll do okay. I talked to her earlier today and she's settling in pretty nicely. So WIPCO is where it's like a bingo board that you fill out with your own WIPs and your own goals, and then she draws the numbers twice a month and you mark it off. Do you have yours with you?
I do. I was like, I have an example. I can show mine. I actually have 2 WIPCO boards because I'm a sucker. But I've got, so I created mine. This is my stitching. Mine are all year-based goals. But so she drew 6, 13, and 18, and I've just highlighted them and acknowledged them. And so yeah, it's just like a little bingo board. This is just books because I'm a nerd. But it's just a bingo board. She draws the numbers, you cross them off. You're supposed to reward yourself. It's really nice.
And you don't necessarily, okay, so like those numbers got drawn this month. That doesn't mean you have to complete that goal this month. It just means until you can't mark it off until you complete the goal, but whenever you're ready. And actually I have mine right here too. So, yay. And then I have January, we drew these numbers, which for me was Fairy Tale Lands 2, a page finish. Oh Lord. Why you got to draw my hardest ones first? And 6, let's see, which is Mirror Mask. That's just 1,000 stitches. That shouldn't be too bad.
Both of mine were 2,000 stitches on Letters from Hogwarts. I only have that on there twice, and they both got drawn. So I'm like, I have to do 4,000 stitches on this. But
you're focusing on that one,
which is why it's my focus.
So, okay. So that's what I'm saying. I did want to go over Daily 30 real quick. This is not one that Emily is in, but if anything, like just you think of anything, just shout it out. Because that's the other thing. I was trying to make this more of a conversation. Like whenever you hear something and it makes you think of something, spout it out. Because sometimes when we get to talking like that, we come up with so much more than when we're just trying to look at the pieces.
Oh yeah.
So
I've even got like my WIP album pulled up and I'm like looking at my pieces.
And I used to do that a lot and show exactly what, and I still do a little bit, but it got to be where it's like, oh, look at this same piece I'm using for 15 different things.
Yeah.
Okay. So this week we're talking about Niagara Falls. And number 1, Niagara Falls leads many to believe that it is one giant waterfall, but in fact there are 3. The American Falls, the Bridal Veil Falls are on the U.S. side, and the Horseshoe Falls are almost.
Was this last week? Or is it? Oh, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it lasts for 2 weeks.
Okay, I was like, wait, right. I've already heard these prompts. I heard Lisa talk about these prompts.
Yeah, so that started the 15th. You're right. That's not. I'm on the wrong one. Rewind.
Okay, I'm glad I.
Okay, this week is Hedgehog Week. We're talking about hedgehogs. The hedgehog got its name because of its peculiar foraging habits. They root through the hedges and other overgrowth in search of their favorite food. Small creatures such as insects, worms, centipedes, snails, mice, frogs, and snakes. As it moves through the hedges, it emits a pig-like grunt, thus the name Hedgehog. Stitch on a WIP with any of the hedgehog's preferred food in the design. So, small creatures, insects, worms, centipedes, snails, frogs, and snakes. Well,
I have a dragonfly.
There you go. I think snakes are, they tend to be in a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
Frogs, ladybugs, spiders.
Any sort of insect.
Mm-hmm.
And with small creatures, like it sounds terrible, but I'm also like, I immediately was like, bunnies.
That might be a little too big. I feel like they would be bigger than a hedgehog.
Yes, they are.
But what was I just thinking about?
smaller birds, maybe.
Maybe. This is insects, worms, centipedes. I just completely blanked. There was, ants. Like, there tend to be pieces with like ants or.
Any like picnic.
Yeah.
Springy. This would be a great time to pull out like your spring pieces.
And anything with a frog. But not something that you're frogging. That doesn't count. And again, you just have to stitch on something with it in the design, not actually on it. This goes for magical stitches too. If it needs to be on the specific thing, it will say must be stitched on. Otherwise, it's always in the piece. Hedgehogs have 5,000 spines, which are specialized hollow 1-inch modified hairs made of keratin. When they feel threatened or alarmed, they curl themselves into tiny little balls to protect themselves and deter predators. Each spine lasts about a year and then drops out and replacement grows. Stitch on a piece that if your completed stitches were spines, you could cover a hedgehog, a whip that you estimate in which you have at least 5,000 stitches to complete. So, yeah. So basically anything with more than 5,000 stitches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good.
Read that well.
I feel like that was just worded kind of oddly. Because I was like, are we stitching on hairs? Like, what are we?
It's basically saying if your stitches were the hair. And so you need enough hair to cover a hedgehog.
It would replace. Okay.
Right. So at least 5,000 stitches. So I feel like, well, unless it's a really small piece, most pieces would be big enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Stitch on a whip that has something that represents night in the design. So a moon, stars. A bat.
I was like, if you think certain mythical creatures that like only come out at night, vampires, werewolves, ghosties,
something
like
represents night. Exactly. Yes.
Candles. I would think anything that's a light is turned on. I don't typically need to turn all my lights on if it's daytime.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Put stitches into a whip with something you have or would like to have as a pet. I have about 1 million whips with a cat in it. Just like every whip has a cat in it.
I'll just go get mine.
Yeah.
I was like, my letters from Hogwarts has owls on it, and I love owls.
But even if it's something exotic and you're like, I would love to have a tiger as a pet. Like, obviously that's not feasible, but I want to. Some people like bats and things like that. So really just anything.
Oh, and I'm thinking Anzac Pandemic has those peacocks, those beautiful peacocks. Yeah, like it would just be.
Well, and like Spangled has a cat even like in the corner. It's so teeny tiny, like you completely miss it if you're not really looking for it. But also sheep and goats and pigs. People make these things into pets. They may be farm animals, but absolutely. They make it into pets. So, okay, next. Stitch on a piece that has either something serious or silly in the design. So I guess that one is pretty interpretive. Just kind of explain yourself. Like, why do you find bats funny? I don't know why I'm stuck on bats tonight. They're apparently on the brain. Something serious. Like
I have quite a few book related pieces, but like I work at a library and you could definitely take those as they could be textbooks, they could be very serious, knowledgeable tomes, like or studious. Comic books, like go that route, or anything that's cartoony based or game based could be funny.
Yeah.
Even like movie based could be serious.
Poop emojis.
We're all children.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's a bonus prompt this week. Stitch on a whip with a hedgehog in the design. See, this is that must have a hedgehog in the design. Must be a clear representation of a hedgehog to qualify. No alternate stitches. Does not qualify for Build a Challenge. So she likes to throw these in there sometimes where you have to have the exact thing. And I'm not sure I do.
So I don't own it, but I know one of the caterpillar cross stitch trees.
Mm-hmm.
The fall one has a hedgehog, and I know all that's coming to mind is the Hello Deer one because that's the most recent, and the winter one. But the fall one does have a hedgehog.
Yeah, because it had a fox in it too, right?
Yeah, like a fox and owl, and the hedgehog like all up in the tree, and it's cute. Yeah. And it's a hedgehog.
Anzac might, but with it being Australian-based things, it could look like a hedgehog to me and actually be like an echidna or some other weird animal I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
So
but there's a capybara. Like what?
The echidnas do look very similar to a hedgehog because my friend actually sent me a video of one that she was walking past. So, okay. And then of course they have the 30 minutes a day for 5 days. So if you want to start on that, you should have started on it today in order to get your full 5 days in before Friday. But yeah, or tomorrow. No, tonight. I think you need to have to start tonight. Okay. And the last thing I have today is Crystal Academy. They were in like a winter hiatus for a little bit, which is why we haven't discussed them too much. They came back. We had a competition. There was 13 or 14 mascots for each of the dorms, and they were trying to shrink that down. Going through 14 dorms was a bit too much. So we had a battle of 2 houses against each other, and one and one lost. So we're down to 7, but they want to go down to 6. So right now you go in there and you pick whichever mascot you want to win, and you can do more than one. And you stitch as many stitches as possible. So, but they all have to be on the same piece. So if I decide to stitch on Anzac and for Car, which is my house or my dorm, and I stitch 562 stitches, and then I decide I want to stitch for what was one that won? I don't know which other ones won. I know Kushtaka lost because they lost to us. But anyways, if they were still in it, you could go stitch 300 stitches for them, but it has to be on Anzac. You're not allowed one whip for this entire thing. And I think it ends the 29th or sometime soon, because starting in February, they're going to have the tribunal where you have to complete certain tasks in order to get sorted into the dorms. So if a competitive, because it is pretty competitive, it requires that you stitch every week to help your team out as much as possible, because if you don't, your team doesn't learn the spell or whatever it is you're trying to for that week. So if you're into a highly competitive one where you have to stitch every week, you may want to try checking out Crystal Academy, but you need to get in there soon because once they do the tribunal, they don't allow anybody to join into the dorms until next semester. So if you want to go ahead and join now, you can kind of see how it works with the competition that they're having right now. And then the tribunal would get you started into joining the dorms. And then if you don't want to join dorms, that's fine. The helpers, they stitch the same way that we do in the dorms, but then they can pick where their help goes to. So Cara over here.
This is why you were trying to persuade me to join. There's so many groups.
We did really well last year, but there was a few of the groups that had the helpers just lobbing it to them. And I think we came in 10th last year or last semester out of 13 or 14. So, but it's nice. I've created a camaraderie with the people in my dorm, and like we still talk. It's really, really nice. I enjoy the competitive aspect. And I stitch all the time. So it's not a hard thing for me, but we had some people on the team who struggled to get in even their, I think you have to complete 2 tasks, a minimum of 2 tasks each week, which is 400 stitches. And they were struggling to do that. So they decided not to play this time around. So that is it. I know there's a ton of other groups out there, but you know, check them all out. See what you think. Everything's different and not everything is for everyone. And just remember, take it one day at a time, one task at a time. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed because so many people do. And there are several groups out there, Daily 30 being one of them. Also, disclaimer, Daily 30 is a closed group and you can't get in right now. But there are groups like it that have the non-counting options, like a timed option. Enchanted Stitches, for example, now has a timed option on most of their events. Not all of them, but most of them. So if you don't count stitches, there's still something out there for you. And I've got itchy nose. So, yeah. Okay. So thank you so much, Emily, for joining me this week. And I'll be back with Vicki next week because we will have monthlies when the next homework video comes out. And that's it for this week. Happy stitching, everybody. Bye. Where's the button?